Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us here for the October edition of our small business webinar series. A couple housekeeping notes before we get started. First, a thank you to our sponsor, the SBDC network here in Montana, the Montana Department of Commerce, SBA, Montana State University Extension, which is my employer, Montana Economic Development Association, Grow Great Falls Economic Development, which one of my co-organizers, Rich here, works for, and then the University of Montana. Those organizations all collaborate to bring this to you at no cost. So if you get a chance with any of those folks, say thank you for their support of this program. Couple of reminders too, the website from which you logged in, we do keep recordings of our past sessions that are available to you to watch anytime you'd like, kind of on demand there as well. So those are available. So if you want to go back and hear another part of today's session that you didn't quite hear, if you want to share it with somebody that wasn't able to join us, that link will typically be there by tomorrow afternoon. Every once in a while, it's Monday, depending on how things go, but we do have those archived. And you can also take a look back at the ones we've done. I haven't looked in a little while, but there's probably about 3 years worth of recordings housed at that site that are available to you to look back at any time you like. So we're going to have Deb McGregor next month, who's a new director with the Great Falls Small Business Development Center, and she's going to be our next speaker. So she'll be on November 7th. So watch our website, and that'll be at 11 o'clock, first Thursday of the month. And then we're going to have on December 6th, we're going to have a presenter talk about, we're going to have a banker visit with what they want to see in a commercial loan application. So that'll be our December session. We'll focus on that. So feel free to mark your calendars for those two if you haven't already done that. So today we are fortunate to have Bailey Kaskie with us, and she is the GTA program manager, and GTA is Growth Through Ag. I've had an opportunity to work with this department a little more the last couple of years, and it's really something pretty amazing, I think, in Montana to have this resource where our folks at the Montana Department of Ag, it's a division there within that, have a whole bunch of resources as well as some grants, some of which Bailey's going to talk about here today, to help ag businesses develop, grow, move to the next step. And they've got some different programs that can target some different businesses at different points in kind of the life cycle there as well. So before I turn it over to Bailey, just remind you, please feel free to send in questions via the chat window at any time. I will give those to Bailey whenever there's kind of a natural break. And then at the end of the session, we're happy to continue to take questions via chat, or you're welcome to unmute at the end and ask questions there. So with that, Bailey, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joel. I'm just going to get my screen shared here real quick. Okay. Okay. Are you guys seeing my presentation? Yep. Okay, cool. So, oh, did I just, no, okay, we're good.
Everything looks good on our end, so.
I pressed the X on the sharing your screen thing, and I was like, oh no, did I stop? Sorry about that. So, yep, I'm Bailey Kaskie. I work for Montana Department of Agriculture. I've moved here from South Dakota in summer of 2021, and started with ag in that fall. And so this will be my 4th year with working with GTA. I have a background in wildlife science, but I worked for Department of Agriculture in South Dakota for 2 years. And yeah, Joel mentioned earlier, coming from South Dakota, we didn't really have any programs like this. GTA is very unique, and I think it's a pretty great opportunity for businesses in Montana to expand and promote local agriculture and value-added products. So basically today I'm going to talk about the GTA program as a whole. I'll go into the application process, and then I'll talk about briefly a couple other programs the state here offers that I am involved with, a lot in one of them and then a little bit in the other one. So with that, we'll get started. There we go. Okay, so basically, I will be talking about projects that might be a good fit for, a good fit for GTA, some tips and tools, filling out the application, and then I'll talk about two of our other programs. Um, so hopefully this presentation is going to help answer any questions if you have anyone you know or you yourself interested in the program. So let's talk about a little bit of background first. So um, this GTA has been in place since 1987. From the legislation, sorry, this is going to be a little bit of a long-winded quote, but this is how it's stated. The purpose set by legislator is to strengthen and diversify Montana's agricultural industry through loans and grants to assist the development of innovative agricultural business organizational improvements and the commercialization and marketing of new agricultural products in order to keep pace with the transforming agricultural industry and to create new jobs and expand small business opportunities. So basically, GTA works with a lot of value added type ag products and processes. We get a lot of um, small businesses and large businesses, for the most part, that we work with GTA. I've linked the website for more information too, as well on agr.mp.gov for the GTA page, and that'll include anything you might want to know about the program, and one of my other programs is linked on that page as well. So some examples of commodities businesses use that we work with GTA: small grains, oil seeds, specialty crops, livestock. When I started in 2021, there was, I mean, 70% of the applications we got were meat processing. At the time, there was a ton of money federally and state what that was for meat processing. Um, Also, fiber crops, produce, wool and fiber as well. We just got, for the first time, an alpaca fiber business 2 years ago, and so that was pretty exciting. That and they're local in Helena. I thought that was a very cool project that I got to work with. And I'll talk about product types here for a second. So the main categories for GTA project types are business expansion, commercialization, education, promotional, research. Startup businesses are also eligible, and then other uh, if none of those project types, you know, apply to you, then I mean there's other as well. So just a couple examples. As far as expansion, say you have a business who's reached maximum capacity, they're ready to expand, they need bigger equipment or a new, bigger facility. An example of that would be like I've worked with Western Cider on a couple GTA projects, and the last one they applied for a new fermentation tank, a much larger fermentation tank for their cidery. Another one was a new stone flour mill for grinding wheat into flour. Um, and then as far as the startup, I just mentioned that alpaca fiber one. They're in Helena here out on York Road, but they had some equipment when they applied, but they needed this large knitting machine. They had it shipped over from Germany, um, and so they were a startup business that got funded for the knitting machine and the spinner that they use for their alpaca fiber. And that business is pretty cool because they have all their alpacas on site, and it literally goes from their their backyard, their field where the alpacas are, to finished fiber products. They make scarves and hats, and I think they've started doing shirts now, but all fiber from their alpacas, which is pretty cool. So let's go into a little more program aspects. So types of funding available. we have for GTA, you can get a grant up to 50,000, and on top of that, you can get or I should say, you can get a loan up to 100,000. We just opened for pre-applications on the 1st. So GTA has 2 phases that I'll go into more detail on here in a little bit, but the pre-application phase is very short, and it's open from October 1st to October 31st. And then after that, we have a council review meeting. They select applications, and I'll continue to talk about that here in a minute. So where the funds are coming from for GTA, it's from the general fund and coal severance taxes. We receive about $885,000 from the general fund and about $500,000 from the coal fund. Some of that is used for administrative. So as far as award amount availability, we usually make about 900,000 to 1.1 million in awards every year for GTA, and that includes a couple of our smaller grant programs as well. I'd say GTA is probably closer to the 900 to 950 mark. So yeah, I mean, it's a good chunk of money, I think, and we usually fund about 20 to 25 projects just through GTA with that money. As far as timeline goes for this year, like I said, the pre-application is open now with the deadline of October 31st. And then our Ag Development Council is a 7-member council appointed by the governor. 5 of them are appointed by the governor, and 2 on includes the director for agriculture, and then the director for commerce are also on the council. So they will review all the pre-applications in about 2nd or 3rd week of November, depending on when we can get that meeting scheduled. And then I'll send out full application invitations at the end of November. And so with GTA, we still make tweaks every year to the timeline or just different little details in the guidelines this year. So last year we had the full application deadline right after the new year. It was like January 7th. And we've got some feedback, which I agree with, that it's a little difficult for our FADCs to work with grant applicants right around the holidays. So we extended the deadline for the full application to the end of January this year. So it gives people more time to finish up their applications after the holidays. And then, so council will meet in probably 3rd week of February, or maybe somewhere between the 3rd week of February and the 1st week of March. Usually it's mid-February, but since we extended out the full application deadline, we're going to move the meeting back a little bit as well, just so I have more time and the council has more time to review applications before the meeting. And as well with our full application, there's a video that goes with it too. The applicants have to send in a 4-minute video talking about the project, and they started doing that in 2020 when everything went to Zoom, so they had to have all the meetings online, and we just kept the video requirement because it's actually very beneficial for the council to have that as in addition to the paper or online electronic application. So the timeline, we've talked about that. So basically, should you apply? So is the project going to primarily add value to Montana's ag products? That's the main question that a business needs to ask themselves. And then as well as the other criteria, should add value, have prospects for achieving commercial success, and then have the possibility to create and/or retain jobs. That one is the last one isn't as important. It's great and it is in the code. But I would say the council doesn't take as hard of a look as maybe they used to on that criteria. It's more about the competitiveness of the project and the added value to ag and benefit to other ag businesses and entities in Montana. As far as who can apply, the list of not, and this is not inclusive, but individuals, business and industry organizations, public and private agencies, educational institutions, local government, cooperatives, nonprofits, those entities are all eligible to apply for GTA. And we also accept joint applications. So I've had an FADC work with a business. It was Mission West in this specific example I'm thinking of, where they were working with a small meat processor on developing a meat snack stick, and they were utilizing the Mission West food enterprise. So they went in together. Actually, the project already existed before, and then they added Mission West as a secondary entity on the project. But just things like that. If there is a joint application, we would need like a list or a letter of, saying you're working together and all of that good stuff too to in the application. Uh,
And Bailey, can I jump in here? We had a question come in. Can
oh,
you
for sure.
explain what
Yep.
FADCs are?
Yep. Sorry I mentioned that so soon. I will get into that. It's our food and agriculture development centers, and I'll talk about them more in a bit. Um, they're basically partly funded by the state, but they are small business development assistance centers. So they're very amazing, amazing people for business support, application assistance, small business planning. They have all sorts of services they provide. Specifically with GTA, they know this program very well. They help people apply every year. Um, I would say 90% of the awards we give out that the applicant had worked with an FADC on the application. So it just goes to show you how beneficial they are for businesses thinking about applying for this program. So every year the council sets priority areas and they can choose whether or not they would like to change them. So far, I think I've only seen one area carry over to the next year. They like to change it up a little bit. And so this year, the priorities were set as um, applicants who can demonstrate the proposed project will significantly impact scalability, projects that can demonstrate increased access to local foods, and then the one that carried over from last year was businesses that help strengthen supply chains and market access for rural areas. I believe they reworded that one a little bit, but it's basically, they'd like to focus more on rural areas, projects coming from rural areas. And I've had a few people reach out and say, "Oh, well, how do you define a rural area?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not the one setting the priority area, but the council chose the USDA definition of areas with fewer than 10,000 people. So that's a lot of area in Montana, but um, that's the definition that we set for that. And just because your project may not fall into these priority areas doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. These are just a focus for the year. But if your project is competitive, then definitely still apply. Don't say, oh, I don't fall into these. Why bother applying? That's not the case. If you have an idea for a great project, it doesn't necessarily have to be in one of these priority areas. So the council also sets targeted loan areas, which basically they set a high interest rate and a low interest rate. And if you fall into any of the targeted loan areas, you'd be eligible for the low interest rate. And these are, I mean, fairly broad, but the council has the discretion to choose which rate you would receive at when they do the full application review. I'm going to move into eligible uses of funds now. Um, so with GTA, these are some of the things people typically apply for their projects. So it's mostly equipment. I'd say that's the biggest thing that GTA funds is a majority of equipment. There's not a lot of grants available that allow equipment purchases. So GTA is very, very good for that. Consultant services, travel, advertising and promotion, and supplies and materials are also eligible. And this is also not an inclusive list. As far as ineligible expenses, so just day-to-day operating costs, not eligible. Overhead, food is usually not, depending on the situation. Food is, because if you're doing some sort of product development project where you need meat or whatever, if you're doing a snack stick. But yeah, it could be argued that that at that point it would be supplies. So that one's a little bit of a gray area, but in general, food is not eligible. And buildings and vehicles, this one is very subjective too, because the council, they don't like to award, I wouldn't say don't like, the applicants just have to prove that whatever the vehicle is, and that, is tractors, skid steers, anything like that, we're defining as a vehicle. It's got to be a critical piece of the proposal. Um, the council just has a hard time, I would say, making those awards sometimes if they don't think that it's going to benefit the business expansion or something like that. And then absolutely no political purposes. No case funds can be used for the intent of influencing elected officials. And this list is not all inclusive either, as always. So something we did just change for GTA in the past couple years is we moved from a dollar for dollar match definition to cost share. And this, I think, mainly was for me, but also I just think it's a lot clearer because a lot of times we'll get with the dollar for dollar match situation, the budget will look like, I want the grant to fund this piece of equipment, but I want to match it with this other whatever else. And to me, and I've learned this from my superiors as well, if something is going to count as your grant funded, it has to be an eligible, like if it's eligible for the grant, it has to be eligible as match as well. And just simplifying things, splitting everything across line items, like one line item split 50-50 just clears that up for me. And it makes the budgets a lot simpler to work with. So that's, I hope, an improvement that we made to this program. So yeah, so if your project is, say, a fermentation tank, and that's the whole grant, it's 50,000 or whatever, 50% of that is going to be the grant funded and 50% of that is going to be the match. And I have a little table I'll show you in a moment. Also, expenses incurred on after July 1st. So in this year, it would be July 1st of 2024. That expenses incurred on or after that date are eligible. So you can already have made purchases and then apply for GTA, and those would still count as eligible for the cost share. And then, yep, I'm reiterating that day-to-day operation expenses are not eligible. So I just included an example budget here. Like I said, so with the cost share, everything is split 50-50, total project on the right side there. And it's best for me to, and I mean, it's less confusing for everyone, I think, to pool items. We had one project that it was a marketing project, and they had different types of advertising all listed out in different line items, which at the end of their project led to an amendment being needed because they used way less advertising in one category than another. So if you pool that into just advertising, then you wouldn't need that amendment, which simplifies it for everyone. But yeah, so that's how we like the budgets split out. And then, so now I'll talk more about the FADCs. So Food and Agriculture Development Centers, there's 11, I believe now, that we have partnered with in the state. And like I said earlier, they are great resources for business planning, financial planning, and any information on other grant and loans that I might not know about. They usually know about other opportunities as well. And I've linked the information for them is on our website. I put that link in here as well. And so I'm gonna go more into the process. I've talked about it a little bit already, but pre-application deadline is the 31st. Applicants selected by the council to submit full applications will be notified the last week of November with a full application deadline of Monday, January 27th. And that includes the online application and the video, that full application deadline. And then along with the full application, there's other attachments that will be required. So we require financial like profit loss statement, cash flow, a financial summary, and projections. So the projections are 3-year projections. And then, so council meets at the end of February, late March to review, and usually we get about 80 to 100 pre-applications, and the council whittles that down and invites about 30 to submit full applications. And I just think that was a great move. That the first year I started in 2021 was the first year they did the pre-application phase, and they had 180 that first year at pre-applications, and I can't imagine having to go through 180 of the full applications because I mean they're very it's a long application. So I think this pre-application phase was a great move. As far as just making everything a little better, simpler, and for council review and everybody all around. Especially when our full application is so intense that you don't want to have somebody who isn't a good fit, you know, fill out that whole long thing, and then it's a lot of work. Usually, if you know the ones that are invited to submit full applications have a pretty good chance of being awarded because, like I said, council invites 30 or so, and then we usually award 20 to 25 projects, and that includes grants and loans. So a few process tips I want to share is definitely read the guidelines, which are on our website, and then because the guidelines have everything, basically everything you need to know about the program. As far as process, awarding, count scoring, all of that. Businesses need to be registered with Montana Secretary of State. It's not required to have it done by the time a pre-application is submitted, but there's a box to say yes or no and why. But by the time an award is made, the contract won't be sent unless the entity is registered. And so our grant application website is WebGrants is what we're currently using. It's funding.mt.gov. And then if you're looking for the GTA opportunity, there's a button under the login area that says search here for funding opportunities with the state. And you would just click that and then search through the list. Right now, I think it's like third from the top, but the title of it is AGR, Growth Through Agriculture FY 2025. So you'll click that, and then you can view the detail page before registering on WebGrants. But if someone decides to apply, then they would have to register to actually fill the application out. And then, like I said earlier, it's not required, but it's highly suggested that you work with an FADC for application assistance because they're just fantastic at resources and application review. So that's pretty much all I wanted to touch as far as GTA. I'm going to talk a little bit about one of our other programs. I can pause now though for if there's any questions on specifically for GTA. Otherwise, I'll move forward.
Why don't I ask one question that came in and then have you wrap up, and then we'll do general questions. So the one question is, I applied a few years ago and was unsuccessful. Can I reapply with a
Oh,
similar?
yes, yes. Yep, as long as it's not a duplicate application, same exact thing within 6 months, I believe. It is in the guidelines, and I can check on the date if it's 6 months or a year. But yeah, you can definitely reapply. That's mm, not a big deal. Anything else, or should I move forward? Okay. Okay, so 2 years ago, we started this business acceleration and marketing program. And originally, it was two separate programs. It was business acceleration, um, and then we had a marketing development program as well. But we combined them into one program last year, and I think it's working a bit better. Um, so that's money taken out of the GTA pool by the council. The council has to approve, okay, we're setting aside, 60 to 100,000 or whatever the number is, aside for business acceleration and marketing. Basically, it's a smaller grant program, and a lot of times depending on the project, we encourage unsuccessful applicants to maybe look at this instead of, like, if they're not ready for GTA yet. This is a smaller program. Maximum of $20,000, and the council just approved a $5,000 cap on equipment. But previously, equipment was not allowed for this program. But we were getting a lot of small asks in GTA that included equipment, so council thought it would be a good idea, which I completely agree with, to allow equipment under BAM. So as far as eligible expenses, it's mostly for contractual costs under project types like product development or like training, marketing, trade shows, that kind of thing. We get a lot of marketing, like if they're doing a project commercialization and there are a new product that they're marketing out, we get a lot of applications for things like that. We typically review BAM applications quarterly, and we just started doing that in January of 24. So we had a Q1 review, a Q2 review, and we're just about to do our Q3 review here in the next couple weeks. But there's only about $67,000 left in that fund right now. So we're going to close. It is closed. I closed it after the September 30th deadline for Q3. Because we got enough applications to use up the rest of the remaining funds. And so it may not be this meeting, the next meeting, but it might be the spring. Probably the November meeting, we'll ask the council to allocate more funds for the program, and then we'll reopen it in the spring, probably Q2 after GTA's been announced. But the guidelines for that program are also on our webpage. On the GTA page, there's a tab for business acceleration and marketing. And then one of our other programs that I'm kind of adjacent to is our business enhancement program, and this one is fairly new. The FADC is a partner in this, so it's specialized technical assistance basically. And so the FADC, a business goes to an FADC and say, hey, I have this idea for a new product or something like that. We would like to test it to determine if it's, viable, good, whatever, or something along those lines, just for example. So the FADC can connect that business with someone to work with them for consulting and training. So that's how that program works. It's I think it's going pretty well. I know they've had at least a handful of them go through the process. So like I said, it's fairly new. I think they just started this spring, I believe, was when they first started doing that. So that's Haley Vine and Jim Auer are the two of my coworkers that are heading up that project. But that was just a little brief explanation of that, and I think that is all I have for you.
All right, well, we've had one more question come in, and then I will open it up to the audience here. So be ready, audience members, if you have more questions. Are the funding priorities for the Growth Through Ag program listed in the guidelines?
They are, yes, they are on the website in the guidelines, and then I had them in this presentation as well. Yep.
All right. Well, audience members, now is your chance. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you'd rather send it in via the chat window, you're welcome to do that as well.
Man, I did such a good job. No questions.
All right.
It's
Well,
okay.
Bailey, any final comments that you'd like to share with the group?
Sure, yeah. I put my contact information at the bottom of this slide, so if you need it, if you have any other questions that pop up, feel free to email me or call me. And then I've put the 3 most important links you can have. The one for the GTA page on our website, web grants, and then the contact info for food and ag development centers. So I can share this PowerPoint too.
Yeah, and Bailey, if you
Yeah,
want to shoot that to me, I will convert it to a PDF and post it with the recording as well. So you
okay,
don't have to
sweet.
scramble and write those web addresses down. We'll get
Yep,
that on
for
there
sure.
in a day. So
I guess just one final comment is I don't come from I mean, I did growing up, grew up on a farm, grandparents' farm, whatever, but I didn't grow up thinking I was going to work, in agriculture. I went to school for wildlife science, but I've really, really enjoyed working with this program. I just think it's amazing for the state to have this. So I just wanted to share that. I think that this program is doing a lot of good for Montana agriculture.
yeah, and having worked on some multi-state things,
Mhm.
that Food and Ag Development Center connection to these funding programs is really unique and a great opportunity. So if you are working in this area at all, if you haven't touched in with your Food and Ag Development Center, they're kind of a gateway to help you get to a lot of these programs. I'd really encourage you to reach out, make those connections across the state. So with that, Bailey, thank you very much for taking your time to share a little bit about those programs. And everyone, please mark your calendars for November 7th. And on November 7th, we'll have Deb McGregor with the Great Falls SBDC, and she's going to talk about navigating stress for business owners. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope you'll join us in a month. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Joel.